Before you skip ahead or start making assumptions, let me stop you right here. I wasn't always this broken. There was a time when my life was whole. I had a family, a home, and a quiet sense of pride in the world I built. But when the people you love decide you're no longer useful to them, they don't burn the bridge all at once. They chip away at it until one day, you realize you're standing in the middle of a fire and no one is coming to save you. Subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from, because this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about survival. And trust me, it gets darker before the dawn. I'm Marlene, 63 years old, and I didn't expect to spend the later years of my life watching the walls close in from inside a retirement home I never agreed to move into. My son Ryan said it was temporary. He called it a short stay to recover after my fall. That was 6 months ago. I remember the day they brought me here. Ryan smiled as he wheeled my suitcase down the hallway of Maple Hollow Assisted Living, the air scented with antiseptic and something even colder, silence. My daughter-in-law, Jenna, clutched her purse like she couldn't wait to leave. I remember asking if I could just go home once the bruises healed. Marlene, Jenna said with a plastic smile, we just want you to rest, okay? Focus on healing. You'll be back home before you know it. I believed her. Like a fool. I kissed my granddaughter Lily on the cheek as they turned to leave. She was the only one who looked back. I should have known then, because nobody ever came back for me. Weeks passed and the calls stopped. The visits stopped. And I started to piece together the truth. This wasn't about helping me recover. This was about getting rid of me, quietly, permanently, legally. And if you think that's dramatic, wait until you hear what they did next. But before I tell you what broke me, I need you to understand how I got here. I wasn't perfect, but I was present. I raised Ryan on my own after his father left. Scraped together everything I had to give him a good life. I worked double shifts, missed birthdays, went without heat some winters, all so he could go to a good school, wear decent shoes, and never feel ashamed in front of his friends. Ryan was bright, but always hungry. For more. More money. More attention. More praise. I chalked it up to ambition. I thought it meant he'd go far. But as the years passed, I started to see something else. Entitlement. It started small, forgetting my birthday, brushing off my calls, only visiting when he needed something notarized or signed. I excused it all. He's busy, I told myself. He's building his future. I never imagined I was just another stepping stone in that future. The shift became clearer when he met Jenna. She was elegant, poised, and immediately looked at me like I was the faded wallpaper in her new designer home. I was the poor, single mother who didn't fit their lifestyle. Ryan never corrected her when she called my apartment cramped or told me I talked too loud. I tried to love her anyway. I cooked for them, babysat Lily when they needed a weekend off, even co-signed a loan for Ryan's new business. A decision I would come to regret in more ways than one. You see, when I fell last year, slipped on a patch of ice while walking back from the grocery store, I thought Ryan would rush to my side. Instead, he sent Jenna to pack a bag and called an Uber to bring me here. Just until you get stronger, he said. And I believed it. Every week, I waited for them to visit. I kept a folder of mail they hadn't forwarded. I even baked banana bread in the communal kitchen for Lily's birthday, thinking they might stop by. They didn't. Then one day, I asked the facility nurse to help me call my son. She frowned and said, "He blocked our number weeks ago, Ms. Delaney." I thought you knew. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the edge of the twin bed in my room, staring at the unopened birthday card I had written for Lily. My heart cracked open in a way that felt final. But the final blow came the next morning, when I overheard 2 staff members whispering outside my door. "Yeah, the house is in escrow," one said. "Her son's selling it. She doesn't even know." My blood ran cold. My house, my home was being sold right out from under me. Without my knowledge. Without my permission. That was the moment I realized this wasn't neglect. It was betrayal. And if Ryan thought I would sit quietly while he erased my existence, he didn't know the woman who raised him. I didn't cry. Not right away. Not when I found out Ryan had blocked the facility's number. Not when I realized no one was coming for me. Not even when I heard that the house, the one I'd built, protected, and sacrificed for, was being sold without so much as a phone call. But when I saw the listing for my home online, when I saw the glossy photos of the kitchen I remodeled myself, the one with the crooked cabinet I never fixed because Ryan liked it that way as a boy, when I saw move-in ready, single owner written like I was some kind of ghost in my own life, that's when the tears came. I sat at the computer in the common room, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through the photos. Every corner of that house held a memory. Every chipped tile, every window pane. That house was my history, my anchor, my everything. And now it had a price tag. $649,000. I read that number over and over. My throat tightened. He wasn't just getting rid of the house. He was cashing in on it, profiting from the one thing I had left. My name wasn't even on the listing, just available immediately, as if I'd never been there. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the small window in my room, my duffel bag packed for weeks, even though I had nowhere to go. I stared out at the parking lot, empty and quiet under the streetlights, and made a decision. They thought they had written the final chapter of my story, but I still had a pen in my hand, and I was going to rewrite every last word. The next morning, I asked for a meeting with the facility manager, a polite woman named Denise who always wore lavender perfume and never quite looked me in the eyes. "I'd like to see my financial file," I said calmly. She blinked. "Excuse me? My son set up the payments, but it's my money. I want to see how much has been used from my account." She hesitated, then left the room and came back with a folder. When she handed it to me, I didn't even have to open it to know something was wrong. It was thin. Too thin. I opened it anyway. The first thing I saw: primary payment source, Marlene Delaney retirement account. My retirement fund. Not Ryan's. Mine. Page after page of transactions showed thousands of dollars transferred from my personal savings. Not his business. Not his bank account. Mine. He was draining me to pay for a place I never agreed to live in. "Is this legal?" I asked, my voice cracking. Denise shrugged. "He has power of attorney." I froze. I had given Ryan power of attorney years ago, when he was just starting his business. "Just in case anything ever happens to you," he said. "I want to be able to help." I never imagined he'd use it to help himself. That afternoon, I made 2 calls. The first was to a legal aid hotline. The second, to Lily's school. I wasn't sure if they'd let me talk to her. I didn't know if she even remembered me clearly. But I had to try. She was my only hope now, the only person in that family who still had a soul. When the receptionist patched me through to her homeroom teacher, I asked if I could speak to Lily. There was a pause. "She's on her way to lunch, but are you her grandmother?" "Yes," I said, voice firm. "And this is urgent." Minutes later, I heard her voice. Soft. Hesitant. "Grandma?" My breath hitched. "Lily, baby. It's me." "Where are you?" she asked. "Mom says you're sick, that you can't come home." I swallowed hard. "That's not true, sweetheart. I'm here, but I need your help." We didn't speak long, just enough for her to know I loved her, that I hadn't left by choice. And before we hung up, she whispered something that cracked my heart wide open. "I miss your banana bread. The one with the little chocolate chips." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I'll bake you one. I promise." After that call, everything changed. Because I knew now I wasn't fighting just for myself. I was fighting to be remembered, to matter, to not be erased by the people I had loved most. And I had one last card to play. I pulled out the envelope I had tucked in the bottom of my drawer weeks earlier, the one with the return address of my old neighbor, Gloria. She had offered her help when she visited last month and saw the bruises on my wrist. I never sent it, until now. Inside was a simple note. "They're selling my house. Using my money. Please help me before it's too late." I sealed it, walked it to the front desk, and asked the nurse to mail it for me. Then I waited. Not for Ryan. Not for Jenna. But for the storm that was about to come. Because I may have been quiet, but I was never weak. The days dragged like weights chained to my ankles. Every morning, I watched the other residents shuffle through the same routine: breakfast, medication, bingo, television. Rinse and repeat. But I wasn't like them. Not yet. Not broken. Not forgotten.
Not done.
I clung to the memory of my phone call with Lily like it was oxygen. Her little voice still echoed in my ears. "I miss your banana bread." Those 5 words carried me through the sleepless nights. Because as long as she remembered me, I still had a chance. I could still matter. I wasn't completely erased. The envelope to Gloria had been mailed 3 days earlier, and still nothing. I told myself to be patient, that old women move slower than the truth, but I was running out of time.
Because 2 things happened that week.
The first, Ryan listed my house as under contract. The second, I was moved to a double room, sharing space with a woman named Thelma who screamed in her sleep and coughed like she had gravel in her lungs. "I need to speak to my son," I told the nurse on Thursday. He said not to be disturbed. She replied without a hint of irony. "He's arranging your transition." Transition to what? She just smiled and patted my shoulder. "Everything's going to be fine, Miss Marlene." I had never wanted to scream so badly in my life. That night, while Thelma snored like a lawnmower beside me, I made a promise to myself. I would not go quietly. I would not be transitioned. And I would not spend the last chapter of my life rotting in a room with beige walls and plastic cutlery. Then came the knock. Not on my room door, but on the front entrance of the facility, just after lunch on Saturday. I heard it first. Then the whispers. It was Gloria, 84 years old, cane in one hand, letter in the other. Her red lipstick was slightly crooked, but her eyes burned with fire. "I'm here to see Marlene Delaney," she told the front desk. The nurse blinked. "I'm sorry, but family visits have to be arranged through." "I'm not family. I'm her damn witness." She waved the envelope in her hand. "You want to deny a woman access to her legal counsel?" The nurse stuttered. "Are you her lawyer?" "I'm whatever she needs me to be today." I was sitting in the activity room, half listening to a rerun of Wheel of Fortune, when Gloria burst through the doorway like a retired hurricane. "You got 5 minutes to get your shoes on," she said. "We're going for a walk." My jaw dropped. "Gloria." "I read your letter. Then I looked up the listing. He's selling your house like it's a car he doesn't need anymore. But guess what? I still have that copy of your will from when George died. The one you left with me for safekeeping. And it doesn't say a damn thing about giving Ryan power to drain you dry." My heart nearly burst. She pulled me to my feet. "We're going to the bank." "But they won't let me out." "I called a lawyer, Marlene. I called 3. One of them is meeting us there." She leaned in, her voice suddenly trembling with emotion. "You are not going to die in here. You are not a relic. You are not a burden. You are my friend. And I'm not going to let them erase you." We made it to the bank by 3:45. And what we learned there, what the lawyer helped uncover, made my skin crawl. Ryan hadn't just used my money to pay the facility bills. He had drained over $240,000 in the last 2 years. Most of it labeled under investment expenses. The rest, luxury purchases, travel, spa payments, a new car registered in Jenna's name. My lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Cassandra, looked at me and asked the question that changed everything. "Do you want to revoke his power of attorney and file a fraud report?" I felt my hands tremble. My throat tightened. Then I nodded.
Yes.
"I want to press charges. And I want him to know it was me." We left the bank with a temporary freeze on all accounts tied to my name. I didn't have access to everything yet, but Ryan no longer did either. By Monday morning, Ryan had called the facility 11 times. I didn't answer once. The nurse said he was furious, that he demanded to know how I had left, who I was speaking to, what I had done. I just smiled and went back to folding my laundry. But nothing, not even Ryan's panic, prepared me for what came next. That afternoon, just as I sat down for tea, the front desk nurse tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "There's a child here asking to see you." I turned, and my breath caught in my throat. Lily, standing there in her school uniform, a backpack slung over one shoulder. tear-streaked cheeks, and a crumpled piece of notebook paper clutched in her tiny hands. "I told my teacher," she said, "that I needed to see you. I said it was an emergency." I knelt in front of her. She handed me the note. It read, "They told me you were sick, but I saw the house online. They're selling it. I don't understand. I want to come live with you. Please don't go away." I wrapped her in my arms, holding her so tight, I thought I might never let go. And in that moment, I knew this fight wasn't just about money or dignity or stolen years. It was about truth. It was about showing one little girl what love really looks like and what it doesn't. And I would go to war for that, even if it meant burning every bridge Ryan had ever built. The staff didn't know what to do with Lily. She wasn't supposed to be there, not without a legal guardian. But she stood her ground like a tiny warrior, one hand gripping mine, the other still clutching the note she'd written. No fear in her eyes, just defiance. When they tried to call her parents, I intervened. "She came to see me," I said firmly. "She's not a trespasser. She's family." The nurse pursed her lips. "She's a minor. You're not on her school release form." "Well," Gloria barked from the hallway, "maybe it's time someone reviewed the list of who actually gives a damn about this child." We were granted 10 minutes in the courtyard under supervision. 10 minutes that changed everything. Lily sat beside me on the bench, legs swinging over the edge, backpack between us. "I saw your house," she whispered. I clicked the link on Dad's computer. It said pending offer. Why would they sell it? I had no easy answer. Not one that would make sense to an 11-year-old heart. "I think they thought I wouldn't need it anymore." Her brows furrowed. "But it's yours." "I thought so too." She paused for a moment, then quietly unzipped her backpack. Inside, neatly folded, were 3 things: a drawing of my kitchen table with 2 mugs and banana bread, a framed photo of me and her from 3 Christmases ago, and a tiny Ziploc bag full of dollar bills and coins. "My savings," she said, placing it in my lap. "I've been keeping it in my closet, just in case you needed to buy your house back." I couldn't speak. The air left my lungs. And before I could stop myself, I was crying. Not quiet, gentle tears, but the kind that come from places you thought had gone numb. "You are the bravest little girl I have ever met." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "Mom and Dad keep saying you're confused, but you sound more like you than they do." Those words would stay with me forever. Later that day, after Lily was picked up by a very apologetic school secretary, I made another call, this time to Cassandra, my lawyer. "I want to do it," I said. "Do what, exactly?" "Tell the truth. All of it. Publicly."
She paused.
"You're sure?" "I need to protect her. And I need to stop him. This isn't just financial. It's personal." He tried to erase me. We filed a formal elder abuse complaint the next morning. 3 days later, I was granted a temporary protection order. By the end of the week, Ryan was legally barred from controlling my finances. And that Saturday, I told my story, not just to lawyers, not just to friends, but to everyone. A local reporter, someone I'd taught when she was a teenager in my creative writing class, came to the facility with a camera and a microphone. She was doing a feature on elder exploitation and wanted my story to anchor it. I said yes, without hesitation. She asked me on camera, "Why come forward now?" I looked right into the lens and said, "Because my silence almost cost me everything. My home, my voice, my granddaughter's faith and love. If I don't speak now, I'll be complicit in letting people like my son keep doing this to others." The segment aired 2 nights later. 6 minutes long. 6 minutes that would reshape everything. The clip went viral in our small town. Shared over 20,000 times in a matter of days. Strangers wrote to me. Former students visited. Neighbors offered to testify about my years of generosity.
And Ryan?
Ryan exploded. He showed up at the facility in a rage, demanding to speak with me, fists clenched, voice raised. But he never made it past the lobby, because standing between him and the elevator were 2 officers and a clipboard. "Mr. Delaney," one said, We need to speak with you about the misuse of your mother's financial accounts. His face went white. You have no right, he stammered. But he did. And I did. And as they escorted him out, his voice cracked, not with anger, but with fear. That night, I lay in bed, the air still and cool, my hands trembling as I stared at the ceiling. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. But for the first time in years, I had fought back. For my house.
For my story.
For Lily. And I wasn't done yet. Because if I had one thing left to do before I died, it was this. Make sure she never had to learn love through betrayal the way I had. The story was supposed to fade after a few days. Small-town gossip, a cautionary tale, a can you believe what her son did? Over coffee kind of thing. But it didn't fade. It caught fire. By Monday morning, it wasn't just a local headline, it was on the homepage of the state news site. Then CNN picked it up. Then Good Morning America requested an interview. I declined the national attention. This wasn't about spectacle. This was about survival. Still, the exposure worked in my favor. The bank reversed the transactions Ryan had made in my name. They froze his access, launched an internal investigation, and began building a fraud case. My name was cleared. The estate he'd tried to liquidate was put under legal review. And just like that, the house was mine again. But I hadn't been in it for over 3 months. Not since the day they left me on that porch like forgotten mail. I stood at the foot of the driveway on a cold March morning, key in hand. Gloria was beside me, her arms crossed, as if bracing herself to knock the door down if I hesitated. "You sure about this?" she asked. I nodded, though my stomach twisted. "This house, it was the dream," I whispered. "I built everything in it from scratch. And I want to reclaim what's mine." When I stepped inside, the air hit me like a betrayal. It smelled of takeout, stale cologne, and something I couldn't quite name. Indifference, maybe. The furniture was still mine. The layout hadn't changed. But everything was different. There was a framed picture on the mantel. Ryan, his wife, and Lily, smiling at a pumpkin patch. My face had been cropped out. I picked it up, stared at the clean cut down the center where I used to be, and slowly placed it face down. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done grieving the people they pretended to be. I walked through each room in silence. The kitchen, my sewing corner, the reading nook I'd built for Lily with a lavender beanbag and starry curtains. It was all still here, and I was taking it back. By nightfall, I was in my own bed, sheets changed, locks replaced, a pot of jasmine tea on the stove. It didn't feel like home yet, but it felt like mine again. Then came the phone call. Ryan.
Blocked.
But he still found a way through Gloria's landline. "He's sobbing," she said, holding out the cordless. "Says he wants to talk. Says he's sorry." I stared at it, my breath shallow. But I took it. "Hello." "Mom," his voice cracked.
Please.
"You don't understand. I didn't mean to. I just thought it would be easier. I thought you'd be better off with help." "You mean with you in charge of everything I own?" "I didn't want you to get scammed," he said defensively. "I was protecting you. You don't know how easy it is for older people to be taken advantage of." The irony nearly choked me. "You're right," I said coldly. "I didn't know. Until it happened. And the scammer was my own son." There was silence on the other end. Then, "You're blowing this out of proportion." That was when I felt it.
The calm.
The clarity. Like watching a storm rage from behind a locked window.
No, Ryan.
I'm seeing it clearly. For the first time in years. And so is everyone else. He shifted tones. Softer now. Manipulative. "What about Lily? You're tearing this family apart." "No," I said. "I'm showing her what strength looks like."
Click.
I didn't wait for him to respond. I unplugged the landline. And then I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I called the school. I asked to speak to the counselor in charge of student-family mediation. And I requested, formally, that I be added to Lily's emergency contact list again. "They said you were unstable," the counselor admitted gently. "But based on the investigation, that doesn't seem to be the case." "No, it doesn't," I agreed. That Friday, Lily arrived at my door. A court-supervised visit. It wasn't perfect. Awkward at first, a little quiet, but it didn't take long for her to kick off her shoes, run to the beanbag chair, and pull out her favorite copy of *And of Green Gables*. "I miss this place," she said. And then she added, "I missed you." It was enough to undo me. Enough to make every legal battle, every humiliating moment, worth it. Because I had fought for my voice. And now I would fight for hers. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about legacy.
Mine.
And Lily's. You don't know how deep a scar runs until the child who carries it starts asking questions. That Sunday afternoon, Lily sat across from me at the kitchen table, her small fingers wrapped around a chipped mug of cocoa, the same mug her mother used to sip from at her age. She studied me quietly before saying, "Grandma, were you really sick when Daddy moved you?" I blinked. The question didn't shock me. What did was how gently she asked it, like she wasn't looking for gossip, just clarity. A child already used to false truths. "Yes, sweetheart. I was very sick," I said. "And I begged not to go. But your dad didn't listen." She stared into her cocoa for a long time, then whispered, "He told me you were losing your mind." The air left the room like a vacuum. That sentence, short, trembling, heartbreaking, held decades of generational pain. I leaned forward, lowering my voice so it wouldn't tremble. That wasn't true. I was grieving and tired, but not crazy. Her eyes welled up. I didn't believe him. I kept asking, then why does she still remember my favorite animal? Why does she still braid my hair the same? My chest cracked open. There, in front of me, was the child they had tried to make forget me. But she hadn't. She had remembered the little things. And that meant everything. "Thank you," I said softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, "for holding on to that truth, even when they tried to make you forget." Lily stayed the weekend. We baked banana bread. We cleaned out her old art supplies. She asked if I still had the box of birthday cards she used to make me. I did. Every one of them, even the ones scribbled in crayon. But joy was a fragile thing. Because the moment Ryan found out she was with me, legally supervised or not, the gloves came off. He filed an emergency motion claiming I was mentally manipulative and emotionally coercing Lily into siding with me. I read the document in Gloria's kitchen while she stirred soup like it was just another Monday. "This is slander," I said, my fingers trembling. "This is a full-blown character assassination." "It's panic," Gloria replied. "He's scared. And scared men throw stones when the ground starts cracking beneath them." Still, it hit me like a gut punch. After everything, after stealing my finances, lying to the bank, staging my removal, he still had the audacity to try and paint me as unstable. He didn't want to lose control. Not over the house. Not over the narrative. Not over Lily. But he underestimated something. He underestimated how deeply I had changed. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse, not with a lawyer, but with Gloria by my side and a folder filled with evidence. Bank statements, emails, texts, and most powerful of all, a letter from Lily's school counselor stating that she showed signs of emotional confusion and guilt when asked to talk about her grandmother's sudden absence from her life. She didn't seem scared of her grandmother, the counselor had written. She seemed afraid of forgetting her. The hearing lasted under an hour. When the judge reviewed everything, she issued a warning to Ryan. Any further attempts to interfere with my legal rights as a grandparent would be met with contempt proceedings. And then she turned to me.
"Ms. Fisher," she said.
"Your restraint in the face of this kind of betrayal is remarkable. If Lily wishes to maintain supervised contact, and if both parties agree to respect the child's emotional well-being, the court sees no issue." I walked out feeling taller than I had in years. Later that week, Lily came over again. She brought her school project with her, a poster titled My Hero. On it, she'd pasted pictures of women: Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Harriet Tubman, and me. My picture was in the center. I looked down at it, barely able to speak. "Why me?" Lily smiled shyly. "Because you didn't give up, even when everyone said you should." That night, after she went to bed, I sat in my room staring out the window. The house was quiet. The lawsuits weren't over. The scars hadn't all healed. But for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like I had won something. Not in court, not even against Ryan, but within myself. Because now I knew my worth, and I had finally taught the next generation to see it too. It was a Thursday evening when the knock came. Not loud, not urgent, but careful, like someone standing on the edge of a decision they weren't sure they'd survive. I opened the door to find Ryan, and for the first time since the courthouse, he wasn't dressed like the polished man who had paraded my downfall. His coat hung loose on his frame. His eyes, always calculating, now just looked tired. I didn't say a word. He glanced past me, like expecting someone else to appear behind the door. Maybe Lily. Maybe the woman he once remembered me to be. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice hoarse. I stepped aside.
Slowly, quietly.
Part of me still angry, but another part curious, not about what he'd say, but whether he was capable of saying anything real at all. We sat in the living room. The same room where we once celebrated birthdays. The same room where he announced my transition to assisted care, like a business merger. "I read Lily's essay," he said finally, rubbing his thumb across a wrinkle in his jeans. "The one about her hero." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence said more than any line I could deliver. "She wrote that you were the only one who never made her feel like a burden," he said. That you always listened, even when you didn't agree." His voice broke then, just slightly. "That essay wasn't for school," he added. "She never turned it in. It was for herself." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "She left it on her desk.
And
I read it." For a moment, he didn't look like the son who'd betrayed me. He looked like a little boy again, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, clutching my hand like it was the only thing anchoring him to the earth. "I don't know when I started thinking I was better than you," he whispered. I turned to him slowly. "It wasn't about being better, Ryan. It was about control. And fear." He blinked. "You saw me getting older, weaker. You didn't want to deal with it. So you framed it like a solution, like doing me a favor. But it was never about helping me. It was about erasing your guilt." He shook his head.
No.
I thought I was protecting Lily. I didn't want her around." "Around what?" I interrupted. "A woman who made you feel small by simply surviving?" The words sat between us like broken glass. He looked away. And then, after a long silence, said the thing I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry, Mom." I closed my eyes. Not because the apology fixed anything, but because I needed to hear it. I needed to hear him say the words. Not to take away the years. Not to rewrite the betrayals. But to finally crack the wall he'd built between us. The wall I had been smashing my heart against for far too long. "I know I can't undo what I did," he continued. "And I know I hurt you more than I probably even realize." "You do," I said softly. "But acknowledgement is a start." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I saw the foreclosure letters," he admitted. "After the court ruling, the bank released the documents. You kept everything afloat longer than I ever knew. Paid for Lily's school lunches. Covered the second mortgage I took out. I didn't even notice." "No," I said. "You didn't want to." We sat there, two ghosts from the same bloodline, trying to remember how to speak the same language again. Eventually, he asked the question I was waiting for. "Do you think there's a way back?"
Not to what we had, I said.
"That's gone. But maybe to something better." His eyes searched mine. "And Lily?"
She still loves you, I said.
But she watches now.
Closely.
Don't mistake her silence for forgetfulness. She's your daughter, but she's also mine. And she knows how to see people. The room felt lighter then. Not healed, not whole, but less haunted. As he stood to leave, he paused by the doorway. "If you ever want to talk more, maybe we could start over." Slowly. I nodded. Slowly. I repeated. Because redemption isn't a switch. It's a door you knock on with trembling hands, not knowing if anyone will answer. But sometimes, if you're lucky, they do. The days that followed Ryan's visit were strange. Not in the dramatic, movie-ending kind of way, but in the quiet, awkward way that life actually works when people try to change. There weren't any grand gestures. No sudden redemption arcs.
Just small things.
A check-in call. A text from Lily. Dad's trying. It's weird, but maybe good weird. I didn't rush to respond. I didn't want to rush anything anymore. One morning, I stood at my kitchen window, staring out over the garden bed that hadn't seen proper care in over a year. Weeds had crept in. Ivy twisted around the base of my favorite lavender bush. But beneath all the overgrowth, the roots were still intact. Waiting.
Like me.
I hadn't fully forgiven Ryan. Not yet. Maybe not ever in the way he hoped. But that morning, I picked up a trowel and began to clear the soil.
Slowly.
Deliberately. Because if there was one thing I had learned in the quiet of my own rediscovery, it was this. Healing doesn't come when you demand it. It comes when you're ready to receive it. A few weeks later, Lily visited again. She came alone this time, her little backpack slung over her shoulder, her eyes bright with something she hadn't shown in a long time. Peace. We sat on the porch swing with lemon tea and the scent of turned earth hanging in the air. You fix the garden, she said, motioning to the clean rows of soil and trimmed flowers. Started to. I corrected. Still work to be done. She nodded. Same with Dad. There was a long pause between us. He told me about the essay. I said eventually. The one you never turned in. Lily blushed. It wasn't finished. And I didn't think anyone would believe it. Why? She looked away. Because heroes aren't supposed to be quiet. They're not supposed to live in tiny houses or cry when no one's looking. They're supposed to save people. I touched her hand gently. Sometimes, saving people looks a lot like surviving them. She looked at me then, really looked. And I saw it in her eyes, the understanding that had taken root. I'm glad you walked out of the courtroom that day, she said. I didn't expect the tears to come, but they did. Me too, I whispered. Because I hadn't just walked away from a legal decision. I had walked back into myself. The summer came early that year. By June, my house was filled with warmth, real warmth, not just sunlight. Ryan started visiting on Sundays. At first, he barely stayed for an hour. But over time, the visits grew longer. One afternoon, he surprised me by bringing Lily and a small box of things he'd found while clearing out the attic. Thought these belonged here, he said. Inside were old photo albums, a knitted baby blanket, and a yellowed letter in my late husband's handwriting. I hadn't seen it in decades. It wasn't anything remarkable. Just a grocery list with a scrawled, "Love you, D" at the bottom. But it made me cry anyway. Because it reminded me that not all love shouts. Some of it whispers through time. In late July, something shifted. Ryan asked if I would consider coming back. Not to the old house, he clarified quickly. That place has too many ghosts. I mean, coming home to us. Being with family again. I looked at Lily, who simply gave a small nod. Not pushing. Just offering. It wasn't easy. My independence had become a kind of armor. But I realized then that it wasn't about returning to the role I had once filled. It was about rewriting it. On my terms. Only if I get the room with the view, I said, half teasing. Ryan laughed.
Deal.
I moved in mid-August. Not out of necessity. Not out of guilt. But because I wanted to. And because they needed me. But this time, I was no longer a ghost in the home. I wasn't the background figure who made meals and disappeared. I was Clara. Mother. Grandmother. Woman.
Whole.
Ryan signed me onto the deed of the new house. It's not about ownership, he said. It's about recognition. I want Lily to know who built the foundation. My hand trembled as I signed. But not from weakness. From the quiet power of reclamation.
It's been a year now.
A year since I walked into court and watched my world fall apart. A year since I walked out of that courtroom with nothing but my name. And somehow, I ended up with everything. Not because they gave it back to me, but because I fought for it. For dignity.
For peace.
For love that didn't come with conditions. So if you're watching this and you feel invisible, forgotten, know this. Your story isn't over. Your voice still matters. Even if it shakes. Even if it's been silenced. Even if no one clapped when you stood up for yourself. You stood up. And that is enough. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and please share your story in the comments below. Because someone out there needs to know they're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, you're the voice they've been waiting to hear.